Desiree, and welcome back to Funology, a program where we show you an activity and the easy step-by-steps how you can do it at home. Today, we're going to be learning about gardening and planting. If you're interested in gardening and planting, please feel free to check out the Arcadia Public Library's online catalog to check out some of these great books. All right, guys, let's get started. So first, our supplies that we're going to need for this activity are going to be popsicle sticks. We're going to need newspaper, some tape. So I have a tape, but I have some bigger tape that I'm going to be using too. We're going to need water and a container to hold water, a can or some kind of object that is about this size and shape. We're going to need potting soil and a shovel for that potting soil, and then we'll need seeds. All right, so you can plant in a lot of different containers. Some people might use peat pots to plant in. You could use a glass container like a mason jar. You can even use a recyclable, so something that holds your produce in. These are great because they have holes and they allow for a lot of ventilation, so air can get in, but also the drainage. The water can come out. So if you overwater it, your water is going to come out and you don't need to worry too much about your plants. It also lets a lot of sunlight in. Or you could use a clay pot. A lot of people like to plant using clay pots. Those are also great. But today we're going to be using something that's a little bit non-traditional. We're going to use our imaginations and create using newspaper. All right. So for our newspaper, what we're going to need, if you have a newspaper that's 2 pages open, you're going to need to cut down the middle. So you just have one sheet. We're going to take that sheet and fold it in half, then fold it in half again the long way. Okay, now this is going to be the top of our container. We're going to take our can and we're going to put it maybe 3/4 of the way down. And we're going to use the can as our base to roll the newspaper. So we're going to roll our newspaper, and then we're going to take a piece of our tape, and then you can secure it. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to take our fingers and we're going to push all the sides in. So you're going to push all the sides down so that you have kind of like a cup shape. And then again, we'll get some more tape. And we're going to tape the bottom of our container. Now, I'm using thick packing tape. This is usually best, or maybe some duct tape. You want to get some kind of thick tape to use because this is going to be holding a lot of soil and you're going to be adding water. So you kind of want to have a sturdy base. If you just use a couple pieces of tape, it might start falling apart and you don't want that. All right, so now we just slide our can out and we've got our planter. We're ready to start. Okay. So next, we're going to add our potting soil. Now you can get potting soil at your local dollar store, at a home goods store, or actually more of a hardware store. You're going to pour in some potting soil. So you want enough to come up at least halfway. If you have more, you can go 3/4 of the way. So it's about that much. And then I'm going to pour in some water. So you want to make sure the potting soil some good water. Oh, I forgot to mention, you also want to have another container to put your planter in, because once the water starts absorbing into the newspaper, it could get messy. You could have water all over your surface. So definitely put your container into another container that's waterproof before you start watering. All right, so you get the soil nice and damp, and then we'll get our seeds. So today I'm going to be using lavender seeds. So I like to pour my seeds out, or just take a couple out at a time. I don't like to pour directly from the package because this way you can place the seeds exactly where you want them to go. So I'm going to place them. I'm going to space them apart in my container, making sure I'm leaving room. And another quick note, you always want to read the back of your seed packet because it'll give you instructions on how you should care for your plant. So this one says it needs to be in full sun for 6 or more hours. It takes 90 days to harvest, so that's 90 days until it's pretty much a plant. You can use the flowers that are on the plant. It gives you the depth. So the depth means how low in the soil you should plant. So this is barely covered. So this means I'm just going to put a little bit of soil on top. I'm just going to cover it with a light layer of soil. I'm not going to dig deeper. Now some of these will say a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. So that means you could use a popsicle stick, your finger, a pen, and dig into the soil a little bit, about a 1/2 or 1/4 inch. and place your seed in there, and then cover with soil and then add some water. So always read the back of your packet. It's going to give you the best instructions on how to grow. Most packets usually also give you information about the climate in your area. So there's going to be a map on here that tells you when's the best time to plant this in the area that I live in. So we live in Southern California. It says the best time to plant this is March through May and September through November. Well, we're in July, so that's not necessarily the best time to plant this. But I'm going to keep this inside. So it's going to be exposed to the inside environment, and I'm going to be able to control the weather around it. So I can control how cold it is, how hot it is. I can put it in full sun, I can take it out. So when you're starting little seedlings inside, you have a bit more control, and you can start planting at different times of the year. Now, if I was going to take this outside, I would definitely want to follow the map that's on the back of this so that I'm planting in the right conditions, okay? So we put our seeds in, we barely covered it with some soil. We're planting a little bit more water. And then I have my popsicle stick that I've labeled with lavender, and I'm just gonna place that in the back. So this way, when I start planting other herbs, I think I'm gonna plant some maybe sage, some rosemary, some mint. I can line them all up in here, and I can make sure I know what's what. Another quick thing to note is that you wanna make sure that if you're planting other herbs or vegetables in here, that they need the same amount of sunlight that this plant needs. So if I'm planting something that needs to be in indirect sunlight or doesn't need as much as 6 hours a day of sunlight, I don't want to leave it in this container because I might forget, and then this is getting the full sun it needs and my other plant is getting too much, so it might end up dying on me or not sprouting at all. So this one you want to keep a close eye on. You want to make sure it stays damp. The soil needs to stay damp, but you don't want to overwater it. So if you touch it with your finger and it feels a little wet, you're good to go. You can leave it alone. If it feels dry, you're going to want to keep watering it. Again, don't overwater because you'll kill your plant that way, or you'll kill the sprout that way too. We want to make sure that we're getting nice little sprouts coming out. So when you start seeing sprouts, again, you always fill the soil to make sure that it's at the right condition, that it's damp and not too dry. And I'm going to show you an example of one I have here. Now, this took quite some time to sprout. I want to say it took about 3 or 4 weeks. Some of my other plants, like my basil, sprouted in about a week. So you started seeing little green plants. Now, when they're like this, they're still really delicate. You don't want to transplant these just yet or start messing with them because they're still at a very young stage. So you just keep an eye on them, keep watering them, and when they're a bit more sturdy, we can talk about replanting them. So I hope you guys had a good time today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about plants and you're excited to start your own plants. Feel free to try different combinations. If you have another idea of a material to use as a planter, go ahead and explore that and see how it works out. If it doesn't work, no big deal. Plants and potting soil are very cheap, and you have the summer to enjoy and learn about different gardening techniques. Like I said, I hope you had a good time, and we'll see you next time on Funology. Bye, guys.